All right, and welcome in, everybody. Hope you all are having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shoemake, and this is the Shoemake Take. Welcome in. Today, we fly to the automotive capital of America. I'm pretty sure it is at least. And talking about the Detroit Lions and how I think they're going to do in 2025. As you can tell, there's some different stuff going on around here right now. First of all, script is over here now, and that's because I have me a cup of coffee. I mean, got me a nice cup of espresso. Delicious. And also, I have my window open, so I have some natural light coming in here. That's why everything looks so bright. Instead of it being orange, everything looks kind of white. Everything looks a little bit natural. So, feeling good. Got up early this morning, and I'm off work today as to record this, so I'm excited. I'm excited to chill out and just talk to you guys about football. In this case, we'll be talking about the Lions. So before we jump into the discussion, if you guys know how this series works, the timestamp is in the video description. You can go ahead and knock yourself out and move on ahead. But for those of you that do not know how the 2025 season preview series works, here is what we're breaking down. Ooh, excuse me. Here's take a deep breath. And so here's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to recap 2024. We're going to look at what the Lions' record was, what happened in their season, and then we'll get into the offseason, talk about all the coaches they lost, who they brought in to replace those coaches, along with any other notable news that this team went through. Then after that, we'll look at free agency, who they added, who they lost. We'll break down each draft pick by pick, and then we'll talk into the season. We'll talk about how I feel about their roster, how I feel about the team. Are they going to be good, bad, mid? Talk about some strengths and weaknesses that they have. And then after that, we will break down their schedule. We'll go game by game, looking at the most important matchups, the most intriguing matchups, and then we'll wrap a bow on the whole video, talking about storylines that I'll be looking for the Lions and I'll be watching for in 2025. So, what happened with the Detroit Lions in 2024? Well, it was the best year the Lions simply have ever had. They went 15-2. It was the season for the ages. Their offense was spectacular. It was one of the best offensive performances I've ever seen from an offense in a long time. It was incredible. And their defense was gritty. It was tough. They had a lot of injuries, but they persevered, continued competing. And that's what really helped land Aaron Glenn his next coaching opportunity, coaching with the Jets, for a spectacular job that he did. And the Lions, it was, like I said, it was the best year they ever had. And they lost in the divisional round against the Commanders. And that was sad. That was incredibly heartbreaking. But sometimes all good things must come to an end. And now here we are. The Lions are in a new season, new team, new opportunity to continue competing. And it's great because the Lions have finally turned around their franchise after being horrible for almost their entire existence. And so now I'm excited. We're excited about the Detroit Lions this year. They're easy to root for. Their team is good finally, and I expect the Lions to be good again this year. Are they going to be as good? No, but they're still going to be a very good football team nonetheless. So it first begins, or their offseason begins with a lot of coaching changes, because when you have success like the Lions had last year, you are going to see some coaches leave because they want promotions, as most people do in that situation. They lost offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. They lost defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. They lost defensive line coach Terrell Williams. They lost wide receiver coach Antoine Randall, quarterback coach JT Barrett, and a couple other guys. They have lost a lot of coaches. And it's similar to what the Eagles went through in 2022. They had really good coordinators. It was Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon. They went to the Colts and the Cardinals respectively, and they had to get new coordinators. And what ended up happening was the team was not as good. They made the playoffs and got blown out by Tampa in the wild card round. And then in 2024, they decided that they needed better coordinators, went out and got Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, and boom, now they are Super Bowl champions. So now the Lions are in what the Eagles' position were in 2023. New coordinators, a lot of uncertainty there. Can they remain consistent? I'm not sure. It's going to be one of the biggest question marks going into the season as to how these new coaches translate and continue the success the Lions have had over the past couple of years. And so who did they bring in? Well, they went from the outside to bring in on the offensive side and hired John Morton from Denver. I think it was their passing game coordinator, I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't at me. But I like this hire. I like the idea of promoting from the outside in this instance. Normally, I would like to go promoting from within, just philosophically in my mind. But going from the outside makes sense because you want something fresh. And Ben Johnson, you're not going to try and recreate what Ben Johnson did. And so getting someone from the outside with a different perspective that can still be creative, that can still be open-minded and forward-thinking with the offense, you want someone with a fresh perspective. Someone from within will probably try to implement what Ben Johnson did, try and keep what he was doing, and that's not what you want. Every year you need to have change in your offense. You need to have adaptability, and John Morton, bringing someone from the outside, has the opportunity to do that in a better way for the Broncos, or for the Lions, compared to hiring from within. But what I do like hiring from within is defensive coordinator Kelvin, Sheppard, their former linebackers coach. This is a guy that emanates what Aaron Glenn's about. No BS, hard nose, is going to coach you up and force you to play well and get you ready to go on game day. And Kelvin Sheppard, in this situation, you want continuity because this defense needs that. They went through a lot of injuries last year, and now is not the time to be dealing with someone completely brand new in the coaching staff. When you got people coming back from injury, you bring in a couple new guys. There on the defensive side is where you kind of want continuity. And so bringing in Kelvin Sheppard to be the defensive coordinator, promoting him, I like it. Like I said, he also emanates the similar values and coaching style that Aaron Glenn has. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited for Kelvin Sheppard. I'm excited for his opportunity. And then they also brought in a couple former players like Mark Brunell to be quarterback coach and Tassard Choice to be running back coach. These are former NFL players that had good careers. And so I like that. I thought that was just something to note. It was pretty interesting. So their coaching staff is overhauled. It's brand new. And that will be the biggest question mark going into the season for the Lions if these new coaches can continue the continuity of success the Lions have set for themselves. So now let's look at the player side. Let's look at free agents that they brought in. And on the offensive side, they just brought in a couple guys to be depth players, to be backups. Guys like Kyle Allen, career backup. Malik Taylor, backup. Tenny Yeboah, Justin Herron, Tristan Colon Castillo. These are all guys that are going to be backups and provide depth for their team, which, considering that they've lost a couple players, especially on the offensive line, that's good. That's important. And then on the defensive side, they stacked up on defensive tackle, added a couple more guys to flesh out the depth there. And then they also brought in a bunch of corners, including DJ Reed to replace Carlton Davis. DJ Reed's a solid corner, bounced around the league a couple times. And he's okay. He's fine. He should not be a liability, considering what they have on defense at corner. With the young talent they have, getting a guy like DJ Reed to be a veteran and just be solid, fine by me. Fills out the role that Carlton Davis did for them last year, like I said. And then some other guys. They brought in Zach Cunningham, an inside linebacker, as I knocked my script over. Zach Cunningham, I like Zach Cunningham. He's a backup linebacker now, but he used to be really good. He was a former Titans player. That's how I know him. And bringing him in, they need depth at that spot, considering Alex Anzalone and Derek Barnes got hurt. Zach Cunningham can fill in a pinch and start for you for a couple games if needed. So I appreciate that. And then you look at their losses, and here's where things get a little interesting, get a little hurtful, because the two biggest losses on the offensive side were Kevin Zeitler, their guard. He left to go to the Tennessee Titans in free agency, and I forgot to write him here, but center Frank Ragnow retired, was with the Lions for a long time. He decided to call it quits and prioritize his health and his family, which, good for you. Congratulations, Frank Ragnow, for an amazing career with Detroit. His longevity, his consistency set the standard for this offensive line and helped it get to where it is now as one of the best units in the NFL. So congratulations to Frank Ragnow for an amazing career, and best of luck and wishes to you and your family as you move on to the next chapter of your life. And then you look at the defensive players, and they lost multiple corners, which is why they brought in multiple corners to fill in the depth. But they lost Carlton Davis, which stinks. Carlton Davis was good for them last year. He was consistent, but they brought in DJ Reed to fill in that role. So kind of a lateral move. Maybe Carlton Davis is a little bit better, but it's not a significant drop-off in production or play or talent. So they really only lost a couple pieces on their offensive line, which is concerning. They brought in a couple guys in the draft to compete, and maybe in the next couple of years, they can develop and continue to keep the standard that the Lions have set for themselves in that department. Like I said, they are one of the best offensive lines, top 3 in the NFL, and so you need guys that are talented to be able to fill those voids properly. And so that's where we get into their draft picks. And they need to draft in the trenches, like I said, with the offensive line, but also their defensive line. Their defensive line had issues last year. They were hurt. They needed new talent, and they got Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle out of Ohio State, in the first round. And some people thought this might have been a reach. To me, it's fine, I guess. The player pool at this point, the diversity of talent wasn't super great anyways. Let me just take a sip of my coffee. Sorry. It's good. I'm sorry. It's too good. I can't let it get super cold. But Tyleik Williams, he is a run-stuffing machine, certified people mover. He eats offensive linemen for breakfast. He had a lot of tackles for loss at Ohio State. He is a good base. He can occupy double teams, and he also has good lane integrity, can get off his blocks as well pretty well. He is exactly what they need in the interior to help Aiden Hutchinson make more plays and give him more opportunities, especially because he's coming off of an injury, giving him the best, easiest, or giving the most likely favorable matchups for him will help him ease his way back into his role easier coming off that injury. And then now we'll get into the offensive line, looking at Tate Ratledge in the second round, offensive guard out of Georgia. Played for multiple years as a starter, so he's got a lot of experience. He's got good feet, good base, and he is a mauler in the run game. Very physically disciplined, very mentally disciplined as well. Does not commit a lot of penalties. And this is a guy that's probably going to start at right guard for the Lions as a rookie. And he is what they need. He is what they need. He fits the mold of what they're going for. He's got good size. I really like this pick for Tate Ratledge. He has a chance to be really good. And also being next to Penei Sewell, that's going to help him out a lot. And then you get to Arkansas receiver Isaac Tesla, who they took in the third round. 6'4", 214, but he is a primary slot receiver. That reminds me of someone who was a big slot receiver that should be an X, but was a slot receiver, and that is Traylon Burks. Not comparing them by any means, just an interesting thing to note. But Isaac Tesla, quick for his size, good in traffic, good hands. He brings a physical element to this offense that the Lions need. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams are not big physical players. And while Isaac Tesla, I would like for him to be an X receiver with his size, the thing is, he is not, and he should not be treated as such. He can play outside. He's done it in college, but he is a primarily slot inside receiver. But he does bring an element of size and physicality that the Lions don't have at the wide receiver position. So it's going to help round out that group, make it more versatile, and he's going to have a role in the offense in 2025. What his production looks like, I'm not quite sure right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. But I do like what they're trying to do. They're trying to round out this wide receiver core. They're trying to get bigger, get a physical guy in here that plays a little bit differently than what they have. So I like the versatility. I like the pick so far. And then you continue with another guard, left guard Miles Frazier out of LSU. Cut from a similar cloth as Tate Ratledge, has a good base, good in the run game. He just needs a lot of work and refinement, although he does have plenty of experience, which is good to note. So maybe if both of these guys hit, you have two new starting left guards, which would be fantastic to get in one draft. They need continuity on the offensive line. They need to continue to be good. And if both of these guys hit, that will be the case. And then now you get to the sixth round, edge rusher Ahmed Hassanian out of Boise State. I wish they would have went edge rusher a little bit earlier. I get that they need edge rusher, and they needed other stuff too on the interior, offensive and defensive line, which is why they went with that, their first 4 picks. But edge rusher was an issue for them. When Aiden Hutchinson went down, he was having a monster year. No one else really could step up, not even just step up. They were struggling to consistently play well, and getting a guy in the 5th round or 6th round and finally addressing that need, it's not neglect, but I would have liked to see that pick go higher. But Ahmad Hassanian doesn't have a very high ceiling, but he is strong. He has a good effort. He is very physical, short arms, but can shoot through his gaps very well. Strong hands anyways. He's a guy that's going to be a solid depth player for the Lions. And while he's not a starter, having depth like Ahmad Hassanian is going to be very important for the Lions. and he'll be in the rotation. He'll have opportunities to play, and maybe he develops into something more. But I don't think that's going to be the case for him right now. But that's not a knock. I think he's going to be a solid player in the NFL, in rotations, and be a good piece all around. And then you look at safety Dan Jackson in the 7th round. He is just a physical freak. No, was he a physical freak? I might be mixing him up with somebody else. But Dan Jackson, he was a solid player, and they already have 2 elite players, Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, so I don't expect him to play a lot of snaps, but he's going to provide depth and be a good player on special teams. And then you get to Dominic Lovett out of Georgia in the 7th round. Slot receiver is like 180 pounds, 5'11", so not a big guy, and good route runner, really has good acceleration at the top of his routes, good deep speed, good in traffic, can make people miss after the catch. He's going to be a guy that's going to probably be competing for the punt returner job. He's done that in college and provide some depth as of now, but he's fine. He'll be fine. He'll develop and maybe it turn into something more. But for now, he's going to be special teams and probably get a couple snaps at receiver at best. So overall, I can like this draft class. Like I said, I wish they would have gotten edge rusher a little bit higher, but with the guys that they got at the top before Ahmad Hassanian, I like them. I like what they're trying to do. I respect it. So this draft class, I get behind. Fine by me. So now let's look at their schedule. Let's look at what their schedule has going for them because it's a tough one. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a very challenging schedule. Let me take another sip of my coffee real quick. All right. So now, as we're looking at the schedule on screen, Week 1, you're on the road against the Green Bay Packers. I have the Lions winning this game. I think the Lions sweep the Packers this year more than likely. I think the Lions, what they've been able to do against their divisional opponents these past couple of years has been very impressive. And then they're at home against Chicago. I see that as a win, so you're looking at a 2-0 start for the Lions. And then Week 3, you're on the road against Baltimore. That one's going to be a loss. I've said it a bunch. The Baltimore Ravens are fantastic. They're really good. They're the best team in the AFC this year, I think. And so going on the road against that team is going to be tough. And then Week 4 and Week 5, you're at home against Cleveland and the Bengals. Those are 2 games that are very much winnable. So you're looking at a potential 4-1 start. And then on the road against Kansas City, that is a tough ask. I have the Lions losing this game, but remember, a couple years ago, they were in Kansas City and they beat them. So that is not out of the realm of possibility, but you're looking at a 4-2 start more than likely for the Lions in this first 6 games, which is good. This is what I expect out of the Lions. And then Week 7, you're at home against Tampa. This one's an interesting. These 2 teams have kind of developed a new rivalry where years and years ago, these 2 teams would always face off because they were both last in their division, but now they're constantly facing off because they're first in their division. So this rivalry has some meaning now, and Tampa has gotten the better of the Lions. Recently, they won last year in Detroit, but Detroit in the divisional round the year before ended up beating them in Detroit. So there's some history here now that's brewing. I think Detroit can win this one and get revenge after Tampa beat them in their own home field last year. And so you've got a 5-2 start going into a Week 8 bye week. I like that in the middle of the year. Makes things balanced and is good for the players. And then you come off the bye week at home against the Minnesota Vikings. I think you win that one. I think the Vikings take a step back this year because of J.J. McCarthy. And things are rolling really well. Then you got the rematch against the Commanders. And this is going to have some blood. This game is going to be really, really good. I'm really excited about this one. I think the Commanders win it, though. They're at home. I think they're going to have the Lions number once again. I don't think this is a revenge game that they're going to be able to get over. So make that the 3rd loss for the Lions. And then against Philly, this game would have been really exciting to watch last year. I don't know if it's as exciting, but it still should be a really good game, of course. But I think Philly's the better team. I think Philly wins this game. They're also at home, which helps them out. But then you go back home to face the New York Giants. That is a win. And then you host the Packers. I think the Lions can sweep the Packers this year. Give that another win. So what are we at now? We are at 4-2, 5-2, 6-2, 7-2, 8-2, 8-3? No, wait. 1, 2, 4. No, wait. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6-4. The Giants is 7-4. Packers is 8-4, and then you have the Cowboys at home running out 3 straight home games. That's a win. That's 9-4. And then you're on the road against the Rams and at home against the Steelers. I think you're probably going to go 1-1 in this stretch. Probably going to lose to the Rams, probably beat the Steelers. The Steelers, they have a tendency to choke and fall apart at the end of the year. And so until we see that not happen, that's probably going to happen for them. So give me the win against Pittsburgh. Give me a loss on the road against the Rams. And then you go on the road to face the Vikings and the Bears. I have them being the Bears. Maybe the Vikings can win, but they probably end up going 1-1 in this stretch. So 2-2 finish to the year, and that rounds out well. Of course, their most important matchups is their division. I want to just talk about that because the Lions are a little bit worse this year, but they will still be competitive. The Ravens, the Chiefs, the Bucks, the Commanders, the Eagles, those are the toughest games on their schedule. I want to see how they compete. I want to see how they continue to play against the toughest opponents. Last year, they would have gone toe-to-toe. This year, maybe a couple games will get away from them because their talent has dropped off. So let's look at, let me go back to my script down here. And I just realized that I didn't even talk about how I feel about the Lions. So you know what? Let's do that right now. So with everything being said and done, I think the Lions are taking a step backwards this year. Is it significant? No, of course not. They're still a really good football team. But given what the coaches that they lost, there's going to be some inconsistencies. There's going to be some growing pains there, similar to what the Eagles dealt with in 2023 when they got brought in new coordinators and new coaches. That will happen, where if your team is good, you're going to have to churn out coaches, and the best franchises in the NFL are able to churn those guys, are able to find the right guys to maintain continuity in their organization. This is going to be a year where things are going to be iffy. Things are going to have there's going to be some growing pains, but I think the Lions are still going to be a playoff team. I still think they're going to be good. And looking at their strengths, well, it doesn't get much better than the whole offense being a strength. Quarterback, obviously Jared Goff is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Some people don't agree with that. I unfortunately do. Sorry. But he's great. There's no issues there. The running game, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, no qualms there. Jahmyr Gibbs is fantastic. Love the guy. And then wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the best in the league. Jamison Williams had his first 1,000-yard season last year. I expect him to take another step forward. And then they brought back Tim Patrick. He's going to be the third wide receiver. I like him. He did some good things last year, and I'm glad that he's finally found a role in an NFL team given all the injuries he's dealt with over the past couple of years. So to see him playing on the field and playing well, that's very, very encouraging. I'm happy for Tim Patrick, excuse me. And then tight end, Sam Laporta, one of the best in the NFL. That's no issue. Offensive line. The offensive line, even with 2 new starters, is still going to be good. You still have one of the best tackles in the NFL in Penei Sewell. You still have solid offensive line depth anyways. I think this offensive line is still going to be a top unit in the NFL. Will it be top 3? Probably not, but it's still going to be top 10 in my opinion. I don't see a significant drop-off happening. And then you have linebacker and safety as strengths. Safety needs no introduction. Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch are the best safety duo in the NFL right now, objectively, in my opinion. So I expect that to be top 2 at least, maybe top 3. But linebacker, the linebacker group is solid. Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes is still there. Jack Campbell, former first-round pick. These guys are not elite playmakers, but they are very solid, reliable, and quite frankly, they're just pretty good. I mean, they're not going to see them have issues. They are going to be consistent, and that is exactly what you want for your linebacker position. And then you look at the 2 weaknesses, and it's edge rusher and corner. Outside of Aiden Hutchinson, they don't have a lot. Marcus Davenport is their second starting edge rusher. Really hasn't developed into the star that people thought he could be coming out of college. But he's okay. He's serviceable. He should be solid at best. I don't know if he's going to be very, very good, but at least he's going to be dependable and reliable. Maybe not a liability, but who knows. And then corner, I only say it's a weakness just because there's still a lot of youth. Terrion Arnold is a rookie, or was a rookie last year, and Rack and Straw was they were their first 2 picks last year, I'm pretty sure, so they're going to be taking bigger roles in year 2. And with DJ Reed, the high-end talent is there. It's just a matter of, will their talent be realized, and will Terrion Arnold and Rack and Straw take steps forward and continue to be good? They also have Amik Robertson, who's an okay player, so it's really just a question of, can Arnold and Rack and Straw take steps forward? I think it's possible, but right now, I'm just not 100% sure. I think there's still going to be some growing pains there, but we'll see. I could always be wrong. But is it much of a weakness per se? No, but how high can they go? Their ceiling is completely unknown right now, and it all depends on Terrion Arnold and Rack and Straw. So with that being said, as those 2 segments were flipped, I apologize. I have the Lions finishing first in the NFC North, making the playoffs once more, getting to host another playoff game in Detroit. Lions fans are on super serum right now, absolutely elated. And like I said, the Lions are still going to be good. Not as good as last year, but still good. My official record prediction for the Lions is right here. Boom! 11-6. Good enough to continue running the NFC North. And so let's look at some storylines for the Lions in their quest to run the NFC North again. Number 1, what will this offense and defense look like? 2 new coordinators, probably a new scheme on offense. 100% new, probably not. They're going to try and implement some things that Ben Johnson used, but I expect this offense to look a little bit different. Probably a little bit more run-centric, relying on Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit more. You see that in camp. He is taking the vast majority of the carries over David Montgomery, but David Montgomery will still be a big piece in this offense. I don't expect that to change. And then the passing game will be a little bit more different. You're going to see a lot more spacing. You're going to see a lot more attacks over the middle. I mean, they did a lot of that with Ben Johnson, so I kind of take that back. Let me take a sip of my coffee. God dang it, it's now cold. I let it go cold. But this team will see some differences, and I think the offense will be better for it overall. I'm intrigued by John Morton. I have faith that this offense will still continue to be a good unit. And then Kelvin Sheppard. What does his defense look like? I'm not going to talk about the preseason. That doesn't count, but they did get obliterated, so that's not a good first showing. But again, it's the preseason. Those are your backups playing. None of your starters are out there. So it's a big asterisk, but we will see. I expect this defense to be in a similar spot last year. They're going to be about slightly above average, maybe average. Their talent is great, but the thing is, what makes the Lions defense so interesting is that they don't put up great numbers, but when they need to show up and play their best ball, they played their best ball. That's a credit to Aaron Glenn, and they hired Kelvin Sheppard to be that guy. He's cut from the same cloth as Aaron Glenn. So these guys are still going to be ready to go, and they're still going to make plays when they need to make plays when it matters most. And so the Lions defense should be in a similar spot last year. Maybe they are a little better if they can stay healthy, which is one of the biggest storylines. And I'll put it here as number 2, and it's not on the script, but we'll throw it in there. The injury thing. They need to stay healthy. If they can stay healthy, the Lions will be good. I don't know if they can continue to be very, very good like they were last year if they have injuries. Is it going to be like, oh, they're going to be 10 wins or 9 wins? No, but they do not have the infrastructure right now to properly navigate a bunch of injuries. If their coaches are good and they can hold the ship, that'd be great, but right now that's an unknown, so injuries really cannot happen like they did last year for the Lions. And then number 3, Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell is kind of like a CEO head coach. He doesn't take over one side of the ball. He is a guy that just gets guys ready to go, kind of like Mike Vrabel in that sense, if you want to look at a comparison. But he's going to be tested this year. He is going to be tested with new coordinators, a lot of newness and change in that department is going to test you. It's going to be a reflection, and how this team does will be a reflection of who Dan Campbell really is as a head coach. We love him. We love what he's about. We love what he's done with the Lions. But this is the biggest challenge that he has faced so far, And so I want to see how he navigates it. I want to see how Dan Campbell deals with what Nick Sirianni went through in 2023. Do they look a little worse? Do they limp into the playoffs and get blown out in the wild card round? Or do they remain consistent, remain productive, remain deadly, and go into the playoffs with a real shot to continue winning playoff games? I want to see what this team looks like when they're back against the wall. I want to see what it looks like when things get tough. The Lions have the culture, they have the coaching with Dan Campbell to navigate it, but with a new coaching staff, he is going to be tested heavily in this spot. And then number 3, continuing on with that same spot, how do they compete in their biggest moments against their most toughest opponents, against the biggest games of the year, or in the biggest games of the year? How do they compete? Do they continue to be in close games? Do they let a couple slip away from them that they probably wouldn't have last year? What does this team do when their back is against the wall? This whole group is going to be tested in that way. When you have new coaches, when you have a couple new players and things look a little bit worse, people are going to be coming for you. It's one thing becoming the hunter and then becoming the hunted. Not that the Lions were the hunted last year. They were kind of, but I don't think anybody expected the year the Lions had. A lot of people thought they would be good, but no one thought they'd be that good. And so now the target on their back is bigger, and so they're going to need to rise to the occasion to match it. And then number 4, how are they going to avoid a significant drop-off? Well, the answer is in everything we've talked about so far. Dan Campbell continues to get his guys ready to go, and they continue to be who they are as a team, as a culture, philosophically. That will not change. Along with that, the new coordinators need to do well. They need to continue to have continuity. The offensive line has to continue to be good and not face a significant drop-off. These receivers need to continue to be good and not drop off with a new offensive coordinator. Same thing for Jared Goff. And then on the defensive side, they need to develop with their corners. They also need to stay healthy. If all these things can go in the Lions' favor, they will not drop off. They will not be bad. There's people that think the Lions will take a significant step backwards this year. I'm not one of those people. I have faith that they're going to continue to be good, and that's what I'm going to stick with. And I think that while all of these things falling in their favor is going to be unlikely, it is possible, and Dan Campbell, I have faith that he can make that happen. So with that being said, that is going to do it for us for this discussion today. Hope you guys have enjoyed. I apologize about flipping the script there for a moment. I kind of got ahead of myself. But if you guys have made it this far and you like the content, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel, as it helps the channel out tremendously. We're trying to build a community here, and we are trying to reach 500 subscribers before the end of the 2025 regular season. You guys are doing a fantastic job right now. At this rate, we're going to hit 200 before the season starts. So when everyone's looking for football and consuming football content at its peak, here we go. Now we're going to be cooking with gas. And also, Lions fans, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you guys think you guys are going to run it back? Do you guys think you can still make a Super Bowl? What do you guys think about people telling you guys that the Lions are going to take a step backward? I want to hear what you guys have to say. Please do. I love it when you guys comment, so I want to see what you guys have to say. Lastly, make sure you guys go follow me on social media, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, to continue to help building the community that we're trying to grow. And also, lastly, go check out my other videos on the 2025 season preview series. The entire AFC is finished. We finished with the NFC North today, and I'm going to be writing the rest of the scripts this week for the NFC South, East, and West, and record them all and get them all out for you here in the next couple of weeks. So got a lot of content coming your way. Got a lot of content for you guys to watch now that's readily available, so can't miss out on good stuff. But with that being said, that's going to do it for me today. And as always, I will see you all next time. Haha.